Please break up with Teresa. Are you seriously asking me that? We have a small child. I know that. I'll make sure to pay for child support and alimony, so don't worry. That's not the problem. Are you fine with taking Jane away from her father? It can't be helped. I love Teresa, and I'm sure Teresa feels the same way about me. My name is Kyle. I'm a 34-year-old office worker. One day, while I was home with my daughter Jane, a man claiming to be my wife's lover came to our house. The lover did not seem to feel bad about the affair. He proudly identified himself as my wife's lover and told me to break up with my wife. He told me he wanted to be with my wife, so I needed to divorce her. Your name is Thomas, right? You're still young, so you're probably just getting yourself worked up. You need to calm down and think things over. If you destroy someone else's family and end up with Teresa, you will only end up regretting it in the future. That's not true. I'm truly in love with Teresa. That's not the point. Even if you and Teresa are together now, she'll cheat on you someday. If that happens, you will be the one who gets hurt next. There is no way that Teresa would betray me. Don't say something like that just because you think someone is going to take your wife. I was thinking of Thomas when I said that. He did not seem to be affected by my words at all. Is he drunk on love? He was in his early 20s by the looks of him. His words give me an impression of elegance and seriousness. Perhaps he is a naive young man. However, if I divorce my wife, I would have to sue him to protect our daughter's life, even if it's only because my wife cheated on me. I understand what you're trying to say, but divorce is such a big deal. I can't make a decision on my own. I want to have a proper discussion with my family, so please wait a little longer before you come to a decision. I understand. Then please call this number when you make a decision. Thomas says this and hands me a business card. Does he know that by giving me this, it puts him at an advantage if I take him to court? After all, he is naive, or his love for Teresa seems to have made his vision extremely narrow. Of course, my anger towards Thomas, my wife's lover, is considerable. But what is more unforgivable is my wife, Teresa, who cheated and played with such a pure man like Thomas. That night, I decided to tell my wife that his lover visited our home. A man claiming to be your lover came to our house today. Is it true that you have been having an affair with a man at your office for a year? What are you talking about? Why would I have an affair? But he even gave me his name and wanted me to leave you. Would you do that to a person you have nothing to do with? Oh, maybe he's my stalker. Actually, there is a man who's been obsessed with me at work. Lately, I've been having trouble with him pestering me. A stalker? Really? Of course. Don't you believe me? Then that's enough. I won't talk to you anymore. Saying this, my wife quickly locked herself in the study, but I couldn't help thinking that my wife's behavior was an attempt to evade my pursuit. Then, about 3 or 4 hours after that, I started to take action to get evidence of my wife's infidelity. I wanted to see if there was anything left behind that could lead to evidence. First, I decided to examine the car my wife used to commute to work. Then, in the dashboard of my wife's car, I found a condom wrapper. And in the trash can at the foot of the back seat, a number of hardened, smelly tissues were found. I immediately took the evidence I found in the car and woke my wife up from her snoring sleep on the sofa in the study. What is this? I knew you were cheating on me. Shut up. I was just sleeping comfortably. I don't think this is the time to be sleeping. You were lying about being stalked. That man was telling the truth, wasn't he? I guess there's no use hiding it now. Yes, Thomas is my lover. What are you going to do now? Do you know what will happen since you did this? What's going to happen? Don't tell me you're going to divorce me. Do you think you'll be able to survive on your own if we divorce? You can't even clean a house. It's better than living with you for any longer. You and your lover are going to pay for this. Wait a minute. I'm sure you're not forgetting that Jane has a chronic illness, are you? Our daughter Jane has a congenital heart disease. Although her heart function has been restored to some extent through surgery, her body required regular hospital treatment and nursing care. I'm busy with my work, so my wife takes care of her. In view of the situation, my wife knew that I could not go through with the divorce for the sake of our daughter, so she was fine being unfaithful to me with a male subordinate. If you care about Jane, then stop making this a big deal. You just have to earn your money. With these words, my wife kicked me out of the study and locked the door. After being kicked out of the study, I went to my daughter's room where she was sleeping. I apologized to her over and over again, crying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being a weak father who can't do anything at a time like this. In the end, the day dawned without me getting a wink of sleep. 2 weeks later, I went to the hospital, a 40-minute bus ride from my home, to take my daughter to her regular doctor's appointment. I usually leave the care of my daughter to my wife, so the regular visits to the hospital were my role. Why did I go all the way to such a distant hospital? Because it is impossible to examine and treat my daughter's illness unless the hospital is well equipped to some extent. At that hospital, the outpatient reception area is divided into separate areas for each department. The waiting room for the pediatrics department and the waiting room for the obstetrics department were adjacent to each other. I was in the pediatric waiting room with my daughter, waiting to be called. I heard the door open and unconsciously looked in that direction and saw a familiar face peeking out of the OBGYN examination room. It was Thomas, my wife's lover. I was wearing a large mask and glasses to protect myself from hay fever, so he didn't seem to notice my presence. I wondered if I should run away from here or not, but as I looked at Thomas for a while, he looked concerned about something and was like he was about to start crying. I didn't know why I did it, but I ended up saying to him, "What's wrong?" "What? Teresa's husband?" "I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't be talking to you at a place like this. I'm just concerned that you look like you're in a lot of pain." "It doesn't concern you. Please go away." "Then, do you want to go to a cafe once the checkup for my daughter is finished? It should be over soon, so if you can just wait a bit." "What?" Thus, we went to the cafe attached to the first floor of the hospital. Thomas was suspicious that I, who was supposed to be his enemy, had invited him for coffee. "What are you doing? Why did you invite me for coffee?" "There's no big reason. I was just a little curious because you look so worried." "What? I'm not feeling anything. Please don't judge people's feelings like that." "I see. I thought maybe Teresa was pregnant, and you were at a loss." "No, it's not that." "Teresa's pregnant. Are you sure it's your child?" "Yes. Teresa is the only woman I've been with. I came to the hospital today and asked the doctor about the results of the tests. But what are you going to do by asking such a thing from me?" "Don't worry. I'm not planning to do anything to you. What's more, why do you look so unhappy? The woman you love is pregnant, right? Shouldn't you be more happy?" "That face. You look like you finally came to your senses after having a child with a woman who has a husband and a child." "No, it's just that." "Then why do you look so gloomy?" "When I asked Teresa to have the baby, she told me she would abort it. But before, Teresa said she would divorce her husband and marry me if we had a child. That's why we were doing it without protection. She's a woman who has a sick daughter and goes out with men. Why would you believe anything she says?" I guess so, but I wanted to believe her because I love her." "It's that kind of attitude that made her take advantage of you. I think the current result is partly because you were too soft on her." "I'm sorry." "Oh wow, that was quick. Did you feel a little remorse after the pain you went through?" I'm sorry. "I don't care if you're sorry now. What you did can never be undone." "But the child in Teresa's belly is innocent. If you're going to punish anyone, please let it only be me." "I'm sorry. I was a little too mean to you. I don't want to punish you, so don't cry so much." "What? Why?" "I know that you're a victim of Teresa's. You regret your affair with Teresa very much, don't you?" "Yes, I regret ever falling in love with her." "Then why don't we work together? Let's work together and get revenge on Teresa." "What? But I did such a terrible thing to your wife." "I'm not going to give you a free pass, of course. I'm actually having a hard time gathering evidence of the affair. If it's alright with you, will you help me gather proof?" "Of course." Thus, Thomas and I joined hands as allies against the same enemy. Saying that makes me sound like a saint, but in reality, it was based on a calculating plan to use him to hunt down my wife. However, after meeting and talking with him many times for the sake of overthrowing my wife, I have gradually come to understand that he is not a bad person. In fact, he is 23 years old and just graduated from college last year. In addition, he had been in a boys' school all his life, and Teresa was the first time he had been with a woman. In other words, because of his lack of experience with women, he just happened to fall for the wrong woman. Of course, he is responsible for this, but it is my wife, Teresa, who is really to blame. Thomas says he wants to take in my wife's baby and raise them. I tell him that it is a hard thing to do, but he does not listen. He's going to be responsible for raising the child from now on, but it is too much to ask a young child to bear a greater burden. Anyway, after that, we worked together to compile evidence of my wife's infidelity. We decided to put all the evidence in front of her. My wife had no idea that Thomas and I were in cahoots. She looked surprised when we approached her. "This is crazy. Why are you two..." "Yesterday's enemies are today's friends. Don't think we'll be dancing in the palm of your hand forever. I've reported this to your parents, so look forward to it." "Don't be silly." A few months later, my wife was summoned by her parents and was disowned. She was receiving financial support from her parents without my knowledge. Apparently, my wife was using that money to go out with Thomas. When my parents-in-law found out the truth, they said, "We will never help Teresa again." What in the world is Teresa going to do now that she's pregnant? By the way, her pregnancy was too far along for an abortion. As for me, I have my daughter's future in mind. I have no intention to help my wife. I have asked my wife for $50,000 as compensation for the affair. I also succeeded in getting $1,200 per month in child support. My wife also agreed to give custody of her baby to Thomas once it is born. She will also have to pay child support then. Her own savings from before her marriage ran out, so she was out looking for a job. It's been about 3 years since then. My relationship with Thomas continues unchanged. When we first met, he was naive and somewhat unreliable. He now takes good care of his son, and I have helped him become a reliable father. When I can't go to the hospital for work, he accompanies my daughter to the hospital instead. He has helped me in many ways. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you again. Please subscribe to our channel.